Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's Red Dead Redemption 2 video, I'm going to be showing you guys one of the saddest stories of all time, and all you have to do is run across this tiny little cabin near Strawberry. So that's exactly what I was doing, actually. I was just sort of riding through Strawberry. I actually wasn't looking for this in particular when all of a sudden I heard an NPC on the side of the road sort of calling out. And I saw the white blip happen on the map, and this is what occurred.
Whoa! Hey, stop looking then! Hey, fella. There's been an accident! Come here a minute! See that? Feller's dead down there. Must have gone off the cliff.
Yep.
Think he's from that cabin up the way there. Poor bastard. Well, guess I'll tell the sheriff when I get to town.
So as you guys saw and heard there, an NPC was calling me over to the edge of the cliff where it looked like someone had actually driven off the edge. And he said that there was living in a cabin close by. And as you guys can see here, I started examining what sort of happened down here. And it looks like someone who had 2 horses with them and some luggage and some stuff and maybe like a stagecoach just went over the edge of the cliff. And that guy said he was going to return to town in order to tell the sheriff about it. So I wanted to go down here and investigate this for myself because I had no idea what was going on here. In fact, I had never seen this random event before. And you guys can see this is our poor fellow right here who looks to have fallen over the cliff. And he looks like he's a pretty well-dressed businessman. And you can actually loot him as well. And upon looting him, you actually get bride photograph. And you can inspect it and you can see that that looks like it's his bride, which is obviously very sad. So from the details we know so far, and we don't know a ton, this individual who looks to have been traveling with a stagecoach and 2 horses fell over the cliff, died, and it looks like he was married to, potentially just recently married, if he had a photograph of his bride right there, who looks to be very happy. There isn't much more we can gather from just looking at the photo. However, there is more we can gather because there is a lockbox on the remains of the wagon. And there's actually a letter inside, and grabbing that letter, it turns out to be wedding certificate. And if we inspect the document, it says, "This certificate of marriage certifies that James Payton and Mildred Barr were hereby united in a holy matrimony in the state of West Elizabeth on the 18th day of May, 1899. Okay, so we're starting to get a few more details here. It looks like that this guy who fell over the edge is James, and the photo of his wife is Mildred. And I would assume they just got married as he has this certificate on him. And again, we don't know what day it is in game, but this happened May 1899 in West Elizabeth, which is where Strawberry takes place. So again, pretty interesting stuff that we have the photograph of the bride and we have the wedding certificate or marriage certificate as well. Now, there's nothing else that can be looted from the actual wreckage of this place, but I started thinking more and more about what that NPC started to tell us, that it looks like they lived in a cabin nearby. So I wanted to do some investigating to see if I could find out where these people might have actually lived. So I briefly remember that the NPC was sort of pointing to the northwest, so that's where I started heading. And until I found this bright blue cabin right here. It seemed kind of newish, and I assumed that's maybe where our individual came from. So upon going up to the cabin, I noticed that there was something on the front porch. There was flowers and a couple of packages or presents, and there was also a letter there too. And upon reading the letter, it says, "Note from Jim." And this is what the letter has to say. "Back in a few days, gone to pick up Mildred from her mother's house. The new Mrs. Payton. Best, Jim." Okay, so at first I was a little bit confused. I was like, who is Jim? But it turns out that James Payton is Jim. A lot of people who have the first name James ultimately go by Jim for short. So Jim, James, they're the same person. So now we've acquired some more details that this guy, Jim Payton or James Payton, was going to pick up his wife from his mother's house, who they just newly got married, Wow, that is incredibly sad right there, that this guy just got married and he ended up running his wagon off the edge of the cliff, and because of that, he died, which is really, really sad. Now, because a lot of the experiments we've been doing recently, I wanted to see if there was anything on the inside of this cabin that might be able to give us some more details here. Unfortunately, there isn't really anything. The inside of the house is completely blank. Now, you can get inside the house, but there's obviously nothing to do in there, so it doesn't really matter. And of course, in typical video fashion, I wanted to see what would happen if we ended up shooting up the presents, or the packages, I guess you could say, and nothing came of that. So it seems like all the pieces are starting to come together here. James was on his way to pick up his wife, and he ends up crashing over the edge. And I don't know who he left this note for. Maybe it was someone else that was living at the house with them. Maybe it was his suite mate. I have no clue, and I don't think we will ever meet them. So I ended up going back to the body, which, ironically enough, I don't know if this was just random or if it was supposed to be part of this interaction, but there were two wolves that were there, so I had to deal with them before I could do anything else. And then I wanted to pick up the body because I actually couldn't do that earlier. Now, the reason I wanted to do this is because the NPC that I was talking to earlier said he was going to report this to the Strawberry Sheriff. So I figured to myself, okay, maybe if I bring this dude back to Strawberry, I could collect some reward, or it would trigger some alternate part of the quest. However, unfortunately, that was not the case, as having a dead person on the back of my horse simply got me wanted for disturbing the peace. So I don't think there's anything further to this quest line as far as, alerting the sheriffs and the authorities. I don't think there's anything we can do with that. However, it did give me an opportunity to take a better look at our individual here. I don't think he's anyone significant other than a guy who drove his wagon off the edge of a cliff, but nonetheless, it's still a pretty sad story. However, it does not end there, and I was shocked by this. So if you actually return to the cabin a day later, there will actually be another note, another letter waiting for us. This time, it is letter to Jim from Milfred. And it says this: "My darling Jim, where are you? After the wedding, you promised that you would come to collect me from Mother's house the following weekend. But weeks have passed now. I have sent numerous telegrams to Strawberry, but have received nothing in return. If you are having second thoughts about our relationship, I really wish you would have expressed them before we committed to each other in front of God. I was so excited for us to start our life together at Lenora View, but now every time I look at my bags lying by the floor, I start to cry. At this stage, I just want to know the truth. I deserve that, at least. Your wife, Mildred." Wow, things just took such a tragic and sad turn. So the wife, this whole time, she doesn't know what's going on. And we're not in the era of FaceTime and cell phones and, Discord and Skype. So it's not like she can just figure out what happened. So she's been sending telegrams to Strawberry, which is the closest town, and she doesn't know. She doesn't know if he's alive and just had second thoughts and abandoned her. She doesn't know that he's actually dead. That is so sad. It adds such a dramatic element to this entire story. The fact that the wife is freaking out because she doesn't know what happened to her husband. And it looks like they were actually going to live at this house. It's called Lenora View. You guys can see that it's just above Strawberry and a little bit south of Mount Shan. Man, that is incredibly sad. And the description for the letters you can get: note from Jim says, a note from Jim who has gone to pick up his new bride. And the other one is letter to Jim from Mildred, a letter from a concerned bride to her new husband. So this is such a tragic, sad story. And what's crazy is Rockstar built this into a random event that didn't give you any instructions on how to complete it. You had to pay attention to the NPC who told you this is where they lived at the cabin. You had to get the first letter and then come back a second time to grab the next one. It's just crazy in my opinion. So we've covered some pretty sad and tragic stories here in Red Dead Redemption 2, but I think this one takes the cake as the most brutal. And it's crazy that we don't even really get to meet the characters that are involved, other than James Payton, who's already dead by the time we get to him. So as always, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about this incredibly sad story in Red Dead Redemption 2 and more. If you guys did go on to enjoy this video, though, a like rating would of course be awesome. And subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new or you like daily Red Dead Redemption 2 videos like this. With all the way, guys, like I said, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.